I got that video about Secret Agent Wizard Boy out just in time to enjoy my weekend. It's gonna be nice that I've got a whole 2 weeks before Psycho Patrol R gets released. Okay, fine. I can figure it out. Let's do this. Fine. Welcome back to The Silly Beard Man Shows You an Immersive Sim. I've got something for you today that many of you have been asking me to cover for a long time, and it's finally here in 2 more days. Consumer Soft Products follow up to the widely acclaimed game that few people have actually played to completion, Cruelty Squad, Psycho Patrol R. Because let's not lie here, Cruelty Squad is in third for places where games have fandoms that have almost never interacted with the source material behind Earthbound and then Pathologic. The more takes you have on Cruelty Squad and the louder you are about them, the less likely you are to have made it out of pharmacokinetics. But we'll call out the tourists more later. For now, we've got a shiny new game from our favorite Scandinavian art house developer. Boy, this is gonna be hard to edit altogether in such a short span of... Hey, wait, I can just do this. We're working against the clock here, folks, so we're gonna have to use all the tricks in the book. Psycho Patrol R is a game that starts with an early access disclaimer that ends in the statement saying that there will be consequences for your actions, just not here. And quite the earworm of an opening track. Honestly, the music's only getting better. I don't know how they did it, but a noise track consisting mostly of pitch-shifted moos and meows is surprisingly catchy. Psycho Patrol R has been in development for a bit now, as Consumer Soft Products has been tweeting about it for at least a couple years as a mech game they were playing around with, but wouldn't release unless they found a way to make it fun and interesting. I can assure you they most certainly did. I was given a key for advanced access to Psycho Patrol R at the beginning of March, back when it was slated to come out on the 31st, and well... the time I started playing was gonna be the time I was doing it anyway before the release date got moved up. We're just moving a little faster here. As I've said before, I try to only start playing pre-release games up until right before their launch date, as they often get patched a lot leading up to the big day, and I don't want to have gameplay footage that is misrepresentative of what the game you're going to be playing looks like. I got thrown for a loop here though. I'm thinking 2 weeks might be the sweet spot, but guess we're back to 1. While we're on the subject though, I should admit that this is my own fault, as I of all people should know that Consumer Soft Products operates differently from other immersive sim developers. Where other devs will tell me that the game is going to come out quote unquote next year, I can safely assume that it's going to be 3 to 5 years. Whatever CS says the date's going to be is probably going to be later than the actual date. We already have precedent for that with how Cruelty Squad went into early access in January of 21 and was slated for a full release in July of 21, but it dropped in June because why not? If I have to assign Consumer Soft Products a superpower, it'd be that they have the incredible resistance to scope creep. Not only did Cruelty Squad never get a pointless graphical overhaul that needlessly added years to the development cycle, and while things did get added on a whim down the line, like the stock market, which was all just a joke on that GameStop short squeeze, it was never anything that caused other systems or levels that needed to be redone in order to accommodate for these things. This is an actual problem in indie games, especially indie immersive sims. So much stuff that should have been held off on for a sequel gets stuffed into the first installment of a game before it's even done, and many projects need to learn to leave well enough alone. The games that they're working on would not only be out of early access by now, but they'd maybe be on their 2nd or even 3rd game in the series. But instead, they're milking Screenshot Saturday for dopamine points for so long that people originally excited about this game's concept will have all but forgotten about it by the time they finally release. If they ever manage to get that far. Cruelty Squad was the antithesis of this, and the kind of development that Psycho Patrol R is already off to is a very, very good start. Welcome to Psycho Patrol R. You will get filtered. As a point of reference, my first 3 hours in PSR were far harder than my first hour of Cruelty Squad, and back when I first played Cruelty Squad, all the things you do to get ahead in that game weren't implemented yet, as fishing did not exist, the stock market was just put in and not nearly as exploitable as it is in the current version of the game, and speaking of the game, it ended at Control HQ, which was called Office at the time. Personally, I consider this the immersive sim equivalent of beating pre-nerf General Radon. Never mind how squishy you might be outside of your mech, at the start of the game, you're incredibly squishy inside of your mech. I've been streaming Typhon, better known as Prey 2017, on the Nightmare difficulty mode lately, with all the modifiers on except for weapon degradation because that is stupid, where you can easily get 2-tapped by the basic mimic if you aren't careful. That pales in comparison to how tough Psycho Patrol R is out of the gate. Your V-Stalker with its default gear will get mulched by basically anyone else in their own V-Stalker in a matter of seconds. Half the time you won't even see them unless you know how to look for them, and that's with the targeting computer. I nearly got filtered after my first 3 hours of this game until I made some serious breakthroughs in how you're supposed to play. Also, remember how quickly you died in Cruelty Squad if you weren't being careful? You die even faster outside of your V-Stalker in Psycho Patrol R. Like, I'm talking a single shot from a pistol from a guy hanging outside of your HQ is more than enough to do you in. Health is measured differently in Psycho Patrol R, and there are stats you can increase, one of which will be your health, but it's going to take a lot of points before you're able to tank a burst from a G11, which is back, and somehow even more powerful than it was in Cruelty Squad. Something you're going to learn quick if you want to survive in Psycho Patrol R is that when you're out of your mech, you can't do a damn thing to other V-Stalkers unless you're crazy enough to try and physically carry a mech weapon, or if you purchase certain weapons from the store that are equally debilitating. However, the opposite is true as well. Almost all enemies on foot are unable to so much as dent your armor so long as you stay inside your V-Stalker. You'll get a lot of annoying warning noises as they go through and waste their ammo on you, but you'll be fine. And speaking of enemies on foot and wasting ammo, the next thing you need to know is that don't shoot what you can squish. You don't get fined when you die in Psycho Patrol R, but instead you are given a daily monetary allowance for your munitions. If you don't use all of it, you get a nice cash bonus at the end of the day, but what's much more likely is that you'll get into a load of bad debt fast by being careless with your shots. Between how easily you can lose all of your money if you don't retrieve it after death, and how much you're going to be just wildly shooting at everything that moves as you learn how to aim and fight in your V-Stalker, you can get into a trap fast where you're up against a wall because you can't afford the gear to make your V-Stalker more survivable in firefights against other V-Stalkers because you keep losing all your money throwing yourself at them. There are many ways out though. Money is as easily made as it can be lost. Shake people down for cash. You'd be surprised how often it works. Killing key targets in quests not only gets you the reward money, but also most of them have a fat stack of cash on them. Steal everything that isn't bolted down in your office and sell it to the guy in the bathroom that offers bespoke solutions to all of your fatigue issues. Hell, you can break into someone's house, massacre all of their private security before stealing every valuable that they own, sell all their own stuff back to them, and then gun them down to get all the trinkets back and go sell them somewhere else, repeating as necessary until you have all the cash that you need. What matters is that you either invest your money into the stock market where it is protected by the invisible hand of pain, or into your V-Stalker by quickly buying up all the gear you could possibly need to survive more than 10 seconds on the murder bridge. Getting your gear you need to make it in the world is going to be the difference between getting filtered and adopting the mindset you need to go far in Psycho Patrol R. Getting gear comes in many forms, buying it off the terminal in the V-Stalker garage, finding parts just laying around in far-flung parts of the world, or picking things up off your fallen enemies after fights. The last one is far more forgiving than how Cruelty Squad did it, where so long as you pick something up off an enemy, it gets added to your inventory and you don't need to exfil with the item, which makes much more sense when I talk about how the game is structured later on. It's also really important to grab these things even if you immediately put them down, because sometimes enemies don't respawn who happen to be rocking high-end weapons on their person or V-Stalker. Gear found out in the world also tends to be objectively better versions of what you can buy off the terminal, which makes exploring important. The world as it is right now is pretty big, to the point that you'll need the fast travel points that you can unlock, and they are very important for getting around. Come to think of it, my V-Stalker is almost exclusively running on found armor sets and parts by now, and I am doing much better in fights than before. They're still hard though. Do not let yourself be slacking. On that note, there are a lot of things to see in Psycho Patrol R entirely unrelated to the main quest. There's tons of stuff to discover in Psycho Patrol headquarters, the building where your apartment is, downtown in the fun zone, and everything in between. There aren't really levels so much as there are places where you're probably going to be shooting at people or getting shot at yourself, and sometimes you can stumble onto things that are completely out of scope of the main investigation and just go, yeah, I got time for this. There's a lot of world building to discover and a lot of places to see if you're willing to look around. Then outside of the combat and cases, there's a few odds and ends that help things along. You've got your personal database, which you can open with Escape, that functions not only as a menu, but also a quest log, a database of all the people you've met so far or have been told about, and even an instant messaging app that lets you talk mad shit to anyone you've got the contact info of on the net, with some pretty ridiculous responses. And yes, there is a stock market, which I previously mentioned, but I'm not going to talk about that for a sec now, as that's something I want to directly compare and contrast with Cruelty Squad versus Psycho Patrol R. Every person you interact with has a hostility and faction meter that can be changed based on your actions, which include, on top of robbing them like I mentioned earlier, bribing them. But bribing isn't an instant reputation boost, because if someone is rich, they might take the money you're willing to give them as an insult, where if someone hardly has any cash on them, you might need no more than 100 euros to make them your new best friend. Then there's becoming an accredited investor. There's even a lovely little cafe that you can hang out with when you're just feeling too tired to solve cases and want to enjoy an espresso. I'm going to put a little CYA here and say that I am not nearly done with all the stuff in early access so far, and that there's a lot of mechanics that I just don't know enough about to talk about them yet. Additionally, I was asked to not go over story spoiler stuff, and I'm extending that to major plot stuff in general since the game just isn't out yet. I thoroughly went through the options menu, read through the FAQ, but there are still things that I am on my own for. Part of advanced access to a game means there's no guide to check when you hit a wall, and like I learned during Secret Agent Wizard Boy's stream, sometimes you might end up being the first person to figure out a mechanic. I think it would also be good to talk about the nature of Psycho Patrol R on top of its gameplay. Something I had to unlearn in order to move on is that I need to stop save scumming. Aside from potentially losing money if I can't run back to it in time, there's no real penalties for dying a lot. The game auto-saves every time you access a fast travel point, and then you can make your own saves in HQ. This is a hard departure from Cruelty Squad, where death was bad enough to put you pretty far behind or until you got that special procedure done, aka baby mode. It feels like Psycho Patrol R expects and even wants you to throw yourself at levels to learn them, because everything you might lose by dying again and again in a certain area will be quickly won back or even vastly outweighed by rewards once you kill a particularly rich boss figure at the end. And moreover, if you're already into the red thanks to overusing munitions, you can't lose negative money, so there's no point in sweating another death. Also, I swear that G11 hits like a goddamn volley of cannon fire now, so don't feel so bad when you get one-tapped. The best way I can sum up the feel of Psycho Patrol R is that it feels far closer to the original Deus Ex than it does to Cruelty Squad. Sure, some features are carried over, like I said towards the beginning, but they're heavily modified. The more lax nature on getting new weapons you find out in the world is nice, the stock market is different, and while there is a grapple system like the appendix, I can't quite figure out how to use it because I am a big dummy and there's no guide for this game yet. The hold right click and move the mouse to reload feature is back, but it's much tighter. It actually feels better than hitting the R key to reload, as I only need the slightest flick of my wrist to just completely top off my magazine, meaning my fingers are free to stay on WASD, meaning I can move and reload. I also want to especially bring up the stock market now while it's here, because it's been heavily altered. I don't think nerfed is the right word. I think more heavily redesigned so it can't be exploited like it was in Cruelty Squad is a better way to put it. You start with only one transaction a day, and you have to complete an elaborate series of quests to earn more by becoming an accredited investor. There's no more just hoarding all of your money you can get through fishing, dumping it into the stock market as soon as you get it, and then playing up to mall madness before leaving the game on for 4 hours to get all the cash you need to buy everything in the game. This is probably for the better, as that basically broke Cruelty Squad. Psycho Patrol R is more like Deus Ex, specifically that first act when you're bumming around New York and how you're just going to be poking your nose into things and seeing what comes up. You get a case manager very similar to DX's, which not only keeps you up to date on objectives, but also saves important lines of dialogue for you to reference later on when you're looking for new leads in an investigation. Nearly everyone can be talked to, even if they don't want to say anything to you, and there are always a bunch of potential ways to solve a case between violence, trickery, or who you choose to do the violence on. Bribery can and always will be an option too, and sometimes the best action is to just let other people handle something for you. Another way Psycho Patrol R is closer to Deus Ex is in what kind of dystopia it is. PSR very much feels at times like it is a scathing satire of the world around it. I'm not going to give away too much here as it's quite humorous, and unlike story elements or a plot that can be enjoyed again and again, humor, particularly jokes and visual gags, have diminishing returns, and the game's not even out yet. That would just be dirty. There's a lot to take in about the world, and there's also a lot to learn about the power dynamic in the age of V-Stalkers and Psycho-Hazards. Okay, so as previously established, I've been asked not to spoil major story stuff, and I'm going to honor that. So I'm just going to give you a quick and dirty rundown of things which can be gleaned from Psycho Patrol R's store page's screenshots as to err on the side of caution. You are one of the newest recruits at the EFP Psycho Patrol. According to your boss on this screenshot from the store page, a psychohazard is how negative emotions can be made manifest from societal illness, which was likely caused by the use of psychological weaponry. As a part of Psycho Patrol, it's your job to deal with those, and dealing with those requires V-Stalkers, the big ol' mechs you pilot. V-Stalkers aren't exactly special, as it seems everyone's got them. Low-level bad guys wandering around in the street, whatever the hell these dudes are fighting for. Hell, they can make these things out of old cars and they'll still pack a punch so long as you strap the right guns onto them. At the start of the game, you're given a task befitting your new job and a lot of leeway in how you complete it. I gotta be honest though, I kinda wandered off and got involved in a bunch of other stuff after getting bored slamming my head against the wall at certain points and stuck on a few other things too. Psycho Patrol R is great with having stuff to do whenever you hit a wall, so you can just go off and do any number of things and then come back later when you've got better gear and a refreshed mind. And I'm gonna say this one last time for all the people half sleeping through this video. Psycho Patrol R is not Cruelty Squad and should not be treated as such. If you go in guns blazing trying to save scum and cheese your way through every firefight, you're going to miss out on a lot and miss the point of the game. You'll probably notice the similarities I pointed out earlier, but this is not a game to be played as frantically as Cruelty Squad. Okay, I think that's been drilled into your head enough, so let's address that this is early access. Now, Psycho Patrol R will release in about 2 days, and it will release in early access. According to the early access blurb on the store page right now, they're shooting for 1 year's worth of development after launch, but the last time they said something about their time windows, it took shorter than expected to get the game out. Consumer Soft Products has also reserved the right to take longer than that if needed. And to quote from the early access blurb in regard to the state of the game's launching, the early access version of the game currently has one full main quest line, lots of side quests, and more than 10 different areas to explore, and numerous items and weapons. It is a complete game in itself. And I can personally back that up, as I'm not nearly done with everything in the game so far, and I haven't even figured out where certain screenshots on the store page even are as of writing and recording this. To put a bow on it, I'd say that yeah, this is a fitting second game for Consumer Soft Products, and that if you like Cruelty Squad, or at least like to think of yourself as a person that might play it someday, you'll like this too. Hey, maybe you'll actually even play this one. I know you're all used to early access games being super duper cheap, and I know that this is MSRPing at $40, which is higher than usual according to the EA blurb. It's going to be the same price as the final launch though, and you are a big enough boy to make your own decisions on how you want to buy the game. If you want to buy it now for early access or later at 1.0, the price will be the same, at least according to now. This is definitely one I'm going to be keeping my eye on as it develops and come back later at 1.0, which I just realized I never did that for Cruelty Squad. Oh well. So I've got something a little silly in the pipe for you all next week, and it's not going to be on the usual day. I think you know why. In the meantime, I've been streaming games that we're going to make videos about in the future over on The Purple Place, where I have the same name as over here, but I'll leave a link card since The Purple Place has an infamously broken and bad search system. I stream Mondays and Wednesdays at around lunchtime for the US and just after quitting time in Europe. I also made affiliate, by the way, and you can sub to me there as I'm in the process of linking the Discord to the streams, and hopefully it will let me have subs get access to the Discord. Better yet, if you want to support me but don't have the extra cash for Patreon, they've got that free Twitch sub you get with your Prime membership, which you can throw my way if you want to help support me, but you don't have the cash to pledge on Patreon right now. I appreciate each and every bit of your support that you can throw my way, big or small, no matter how you send it. And last but certainly not least about that, I am adding a third occasional stream to the weekly roster. I'm going to be streaming right after videos go live here, so that all of you who are busy while I'm streaming on weekdays have a chance to catch one. I'm still working on the whole exporting VODs to YouTube thing. Better yet, on Saturdays, today, we're going to do all the demos of all the immersive sims you keep telling me about, like Skin Deep and Aqua Metsis and Keepsake County, because while rarely does a demo have enough substance in it to make a video about, it's perfect for streaming, and I might be able to do some stuff with the demo footage later on too. If you're watching this on the day the video comes out, it's likely that I am live right now, so come on by. That'll do her for today. Thank you all so much for watching, and please consider liking the video if you enjoyed it, commenting, subscribing, and all the other algomancy stuff to keep me doing this as well as I can. I do have a Patreon where videos are released early among many other benefits, and any bit you can kick my way helps. If you're just curious about what I'm up to, I also do my weekly channel updates over on that Patreon, and they are free to access for anyone. So let's sign off. Remember that no matter what you do, be it putting legs on a car, watercolor, or strange electronic music, what you do should never be considered content, because it is art. Content is a word that in recent years has been twisted into meaning a means of grinding up all your skills, passions, and aspirations into a gray sludge that's only meant to make a line go up for someone else's benefit. Art is sacred. Art is inalienably a reflection of its creator by the very act of making it, and in no way do you deserve to be reduced to content. So get out there and fight for yourself by fighting for your art. Stay saucy, everyone.
Sir, you have a look about you. What is this look? I see you are choosing to belong just outside of the sunny spot by the window. Venting your belly wobbles. I got all his toys and put them here because they were just scattered about the place. Oh no, are we Did you get stuck again? You silly goose. Come here. There's a bit of backstory for that. Frisk is very averse to getting his nails trimmed, and we try to frequently keep him with scratching posts and whatnot so that he might naturally file them down. But it's just been not enough lately. It's going to be very much by the time this is at the end of the video, this will be taken care of. But usually what we do is whenever he needs to go in for something that also requires him to be out because he's a rowdy kitty, we also get his nails trimmed and what have you. And yeah, he's going in soon just because it's about that time of year. You need to get your checkup, get your vaccines, get all your tests done to make sure you are as healthy as a big wobbly boy like you can be. Oh, what a big yawn.